And that's a part of what comedy can do for us. I strongly recommend this book, Conjure Wife. We've only just reached the beginnings of what comedy can do. We have Red Nose Day in England. But what we want most of all is for everybody to deliver their jokes, starting to each other and then to all the other people as well. So we're going to see what we can think about in terms of designing a place of humor. A place of humor. So let's see if I can tell this in a light-hearted way as I see it. Once upon a time, there were two friends and they communicated by video camera from different hemispheres. One of them was very innocent, not very well educated, but was amiable and eager to make a new friend. He was in the southern hemisphere and his friend was in the northern hemisphere. So the northern hemisphere guy appears on his video camera one day, standing on a gigantic chessboard that's about the size of a small back garden or lawn. And the guy in the southern hemisphere sees his friend laughing merrily and uproariously, standing in the far left-hand corner of the chessboard on one of the squares. So he says to himself, "Ha ha, that place must be really, really funny. There must be something about that. It's got like kind of like a comedy pill. You know, like what we would say is like nitrous oxide, laughing gas." Another day, he sees his friend standing on the opposite square and laughing his head off, and he says, "Ah, I get it. The extremes are the laughter areas. That's the laughing space. Why didn't I think of that?" So he goes dashing off looking for laughing spaces. Doesn't find any, but he comes back and sees his friend standing at the extreme opposite diagonal from where he began. So he says, "Ah, I thought so. Must be something about a triangle," because now he's been in three different places. So he draws himself, kind of being a very innocent fellow, he draws himself a comedy triangle reproducing that relationship between those three squares and sees if he can find something funny about it. So he stands in the triangle and on the three squares, can't do anything. Nope. So then his friend shows up again, this time on the fourth of the four corners. There he is. So he says, "Ah, it must be the corners. Or maybe it's a square." So he builds a comedy square, walks around the square, tries to find the humor. It's not on the sides. He figured it may be in the middle. Goes to the middle. Nope. Nothing funny there. So his friend shows up again. Anyway, you can guess the rest of the story. And little by little, over 64 days, he's been laughing on all 64 squares. So finally, his friend says to him, "Now I get it. The whole chessboard is the comedy space." So his friend doesn't say anything, he just smiles. The next day, he sees him on a miniature golf course, laughing his head off at the first hole. And we go through the whole process again. His friend says, "Okay, must be something about the beginning. I get it. The start is the comedy." Then he's puzzled to see his friend playing the last hole, also laughing his head off. So he says, "Must be the end." We can't find any clues. Finally, he says to his friend, "Okay, all right, I give up. It wasn't on this square of the chessboard. It wasn't on that square. It wasn't on the first hole of the golf course. It wasn't on the last hole. So where is the comedy space?" And his friend says, "Yes, you are." He says, "Yeah, I'm the comedy space." "Oh, you mean you can laugh anywhere?" "Yes," says his friend, who happened to be a mathematician. He says, "You can laugh anywhere, and you can laugh any when." Well, that seems a little bit hard to take on, but he says, "Okay, well, we'll give it a try." So, being very innocent, he goes around and tries telling jokes on this street corner and that street corner. Takes with him a friend all the time, so as not to get arrested for vagrancy. Sure enough, wherever he was, he was able to tell a joke. Mysteriouser and mysteriouser. So, there isn't, in fact, such a thing as a comedy space. Maybe then, what it's really about is a comedy face. Perhaps that's what it is. So this is the point at which we arrive in creating our laboratory of comic space, time, place. So our two friends, one who looks like a nerd and the other who looks like somebody very innocent, continue their experiments. They decided to bring in some props. So, first thing they did was to produce a little sign that says genius. So, the Northern Hemisphere guy says, we're going to look for comic genius. And the Southern Hemisphere guy says, well, you've got to turn it upside down because that's how we do things in the Southern Hemisphere. So, if genius upside down is comedy, what is it that's turned upside down? Maybe it's our view of the world. You know, comedy relaxes our tension a lot of the times. Lets go stored up energy. Somebody said, if you go to a nursing home, you'll often see the following scenario. People able to tell very, very good jokes along the following lines. We went to a retirement home for people with memory challenges, and this woman was there holding court as a psychic. And a man came up to her and said, so, you're psychic, are you? How do you prove that? So she said, well, get undressed, run round the table backwards, and I'll tell you how old you are. So he did, and she said, you're 93. He said, you are psychic. And she said, no, you told me yesterday. In the same place, two people were seen cavorting down the aisles, a man and a woman. An administrator came up to them and said, you look very happy together. They said, well, yes, we should be. We're married. And he said, well, yes, that's true, just not to each other. So then, what is a comic moment? Is it a sport? Can we say that it's a competition, like the last comedian left standing having out-hit all the others? Or maybe this is what it is. A joke is like a golf shot. You can hit it down the fairway. You can hit it into the rough. You can hit it with a fat piece of turf behind it. That's called a divot. You can try to hit it and miss. That's called an air shot. And it does count as a shot, and it can be very annoying if you do one. Is it possible to take aim at a comic target and hit it fat or hit the ball out of the ground? Yes, you betcha. It sure is. In fact, it's very clear that there's all kinds of ways comedy can go wrong. And that's a part of our subject as well as a comedy that goes right. Over and over again, the theme comes up. What is a good comedian? What is a good joke? Somebody might say, well, that is a good joke.